Hello and welcome to the brand new podcast series, The Next Paradigm of Outsourcing by Next Time. Our aim with this podcast is to deep dive into the world of outsourcing and explore its benefits, challenges, and the latest trends. The topic that we'll be discussing today is driving globalization in sourcing through effective outsourcing. To commence with this brand new series, we have Kerry Hallard with us today for the first episode. She's the CEO of Global Sourcing Association and founder of the Global Technology and Business Service Council. She's a visionary leader, keynote speaker, diversity and sustainable ambassador as well. Welcome, Kerry. It is a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Likewise, Kerry. And Kerry, as you know, we'll be asking you a series of questions to get over your thoughts on critical subject to our audience. With your permission, I'd like to start with the first question.
Yep, please do.
So here it goes. Sourcing has come across as a key function, Kerry, when it comes to maintaining business continuity. According to you, what are the top 5 challenges that you see that sourcing professionals are facing today?
Okay, so if we look at what outsourcing is, it's all about companies can't do everything themselves. They need to work with partners to give them access to talent and specialisms. So I think the biggest challenge right now is access to skilled talent. So obviously everyone knows we've got an absolute talent crisis on our hands, and that talent crisis plays into the role of the sourcing professional as well as into the delivery of the services. So yeah, it's a challenging time with regards to talent, but absolutely it's the right thing for organisations to be working with these industry specialists that can really add value to their organisations. So what we're seeing at the moment is every company at the moment is trying to build more resilience into their operations. The pandemic has changed so much for so many organisations, and resilience, as we all know, is now top of board agendas. So we're seeing that sourcing professionals are trying to build more resilience into their businesses by better blending their global delivery. So they're looking at not having all their eggs in one basket, but actually having partners all around the world. So we're looking and seeing a more blended global delivery footprint for organisations. Of course, the other thing that's at the top of every organisation's agenda is ESG. So sourcing professionals are being asked to ensure that the business is sustainable itself, but that there is good sustainability all throughout their supply chain. So they have to ensure that the suppliers that they're working with have got good ESG metrics, good sustainability at their core. The other thing that we are seeing is when the pandemic struck, obviously businesses had to transform. They had to move into the cloud. They pressed go on so many digital transformation programs that had been waiting in the wings, just because they had to. We were working in this new virtual world. But they found out that these digital transformations actually worked. So now the appetite to actually digitally transform so many aspects of the business is the appetite so huge. So organisations are trying to look at all of the areas that they can either digitally transform themselves or can get their partners and service providers to help them with digital transformation. And that's all to increase the innovation and also all to ensure that the customer experience, which is absolutely key for retaining customers and for growing companies, that the customer experience is improved through digital transformation. So I think these are really big items, all of them really big items, but I think they are absolutely what sourcing professionals are grappling with today.
No, thank you. Thanks for the insight. So what I hear you say in terms of the priorities is to build resilience, is to ensure customers at the heart of any strategy, is also to deliver more for less. And when I look at all this, right, the one key question that comes to my mind is how would you think, let's say, having an outsourcing partner can bring value to the current state of sourcing function? Because ultimately it's all about value, right, that you bring to the business. What is the role that an outsourcing partner can play, according to you, Kerry?
Yeah, so as I opened with, companies can't do everything themselves. They do need access to best-in-class specialists. So when you actually look at an outsourcing service provider, they know their space, their function, their processes, and how to make them as efficient and as effective as possible. They know this inside out. This is their bread and butter. This is what they, their raison d'etre is to improve efficiencies and effectiveness in given processes. So they bring that expertise, but in addition to that, they bring flexibility. They bring agility. It's possible to scale up and scale down when you work with outsourcing service providers so much more easily than when you actually build your own, of course. They drive innovation and digital transformation. That's what they bring when they bring this process excellence and expertise with them. And of course, they have got access to really skilled talent. So they can deliver transformation, innovation, and save time and money, almost immediately.
Wow. So these are the host of benefits, according to you, that an outsourcing partner can bring. And with every benefit, we all know, right, there comes a risk element. So what risk would you like to call out to a sourcing professional who are engaging or planning to engage with outsourcing partners? And according to you, how can you mitigate these risks?
Okay, so our research shows that when outsourcing fails, in 85% of cases, when it fails, so it doesn't fail in 85% of cases at all, it rarely fails, but when it does fail, the vast majority of the reason for failure is due to poor relationship management. So, we always say that you've got to recognize outsourcing as being a collaboration. It's a partnership. You've got to recognize that it's not a master-slave arrangement, with the customer being king. The customer, obviously the end customer is always king, but in this, as a buyer, you've got to sort of recognize that your service provider is your peer. You're in this together. You've got to have win-win and mutually aligned objectives. And it's when organizations don't see that and don't build the relationship to be a full partnership that we do see outsourcing not deliver to its full potential. So we call them intelligent customers, and we have some incredibly brilliant intelligent customers in our industry, but then we also have some less intelligent customers that just look at, you haven't achieved your SLA, I'm not going to pay you what we'd agreed, without actually trying to understand why that provider hasn't achieved their SLA. So it's working together, when there are challenges, working for the solutions together, and recognizing that's so important. But of course, it's getting the right partner on board in the first place. So we're big advocates of agile sourcing, which is a new way of running the RFP. It's a much more inclusive and iterative process rather than the old school approach of, just put your answers on a piece of paper and it's kind of going to be marked. It's a much more inclusive process, and that enables you to do your due diligence through the sourcing process and really recognize that this is a partner that you are culturally aligned with and really want to work with. So those are my top level bits of advice, and the key risks are not seeing it as a partnership.
Got it. And one of the things that you beautifully articulate, right, is the agile sourcing inclusiveness, right? So the definition of MSA is not master-slave agreement, it's master-service agreement, according to you, and very nicely put. So I think all these learnings are very important. And therefore, it kind of boils down to partnership, inclusion, robust governance, like you correctly mentioned. With that being said, how does such a partnership accelerate, right? And if the partnership has got the right foundation, how does such a partnership accelerate driving the globalization of sourcing, according to you?
Yeah, so obviously the vast majority of service providers are really large organisations by their nature. So they can bring not only all the benefits that I've mentioned already in terms of agility, access to talent, and process expertise, but they can also bring this on a global scale. So if you're actually are looking at mitigating risk, building resilience, and having a more blended global delivery footprint, then what better way of doing that than having a service provider do that for you that already has people on the ground in many different locations that they know can deliver the service lines that you're actually looking for. So yeah, the service provider community is got a very broad reach. Most of them have got delivery locations in every corner around the world, so they can help you work out which is the best delivery location for you and what you're trying to achieve, and can make that happen.
Got it.
And in doing so as well, which is one of the subjects that I'm really passionate about, they are bringing opportunity and work to otherwise disadvantaged workers. So it's something that we term impact sourcing. And I think that's going to become incredibly important on many people's agendas as we move forward. And that is, as I say, giving meaningful employment to otherwise disadvantaged individuals. And I think buyers and service providers are both looking to have much more sustainability and sustainable working practices throughout their organizations.
Got it. So I think the key messaging for acceleration is also about, like you correctly mentioned, in terms of the reach, in terms of the experience being the same, and also focusing on the key agenda, which is the supplier diversity, impact sourcing, and global sustainability. Very, very well articulated. So with that, maybe if I have to broad base the next question, according to you, what does the future look like, right? What's the future outlook of outsourced sourcing according to you?
Okay, so the future's bright, and I don't mean to be gloating when I say this, but the outsourcing industry always performs incredibly well when the rest of the world faces challenges. So recessions, geopolitical crises, and things like that. Organisations decide to focus much more on operational expenditure rather than investing, in significant capital expenditure. So the outsourcing industry tends to boom when we face business, when the world faces challenges. So we are seeing really consistent, steady growth across the outsourcing of both technology and business services. But we're seeing a different sort of like personality for the industry now. There is so much more focus on ESG, and I think because our industry, service provision is all about people. At the end of the day, we're selling people. The S bit of ESG, the social bit, is incredibly important, and we are really seeing organisations do some really great work in on the social side of things. Some organisations, have targets of, upward of 30% of all of their new employees will be impact workers. So that this is doing some great stuff for the sort of like, sustainable development goals in eradicating world poverty. So I think our industry is going to continue to grow, but it's going to sort of like drive some really, really important changes that are going to be beneficial globally. So we'll be bringing in, a lot more diversity into our sourcing ecosystem, a lot more smaller players into our sourcing ecosystem, which will drive more innovation for businesses overall. And the other thing that I think we are at last going to see is a standard, a globalized standard. So at the moment, this is a global industry. It's been a global industry for over 20 years when offshoring, first took off. But we've all worked to national sort of standards. And I think there's going to be a move towards greater standardization, but it's going to be one global standard in the way that the industry works and talks about itself and the competencies and capabilities that the employees in this industry have all around the world. And I think that's really, really exciting.
Got it. And with that, we come to the end of this session. So thank you, Kerry, for a very informative conversation on driving globalization in sourcing through effective outsourcing. Outsourcing in recent times has caught the attention of business globally. I'm sure that all our listeners must have benefited from these insights. So thank you, Kerry, once again.
Thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you, Kartik.
Likewise. And thank you everyone for listening in. If you have any questions or have suggestions for future topic, please write to us at thinknext@nextdime.com. You can also reach out to Kerry's LinkedIn. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening in.